Hi, everyone. I'm Kimbyrleigha. This is Kimbyrleigha Live. And if it's your first time here, it's nice to finally meet you. If you don't know me, I have a true crime channel here on YouTube. We're almost at 500,000 subscribers. I think I checked today and it was like 496 and some change. So I cannot even believe we're at that number. I also have a video podcast with my husband called Dark Livity. Those are solved true crime narratives. If you're into that thing, check them out below. And here I discuss current cases that are ongoing and in trial right now. And today I'm going to be recapping day 3 of the Raul Valle case. This is the murder of James Thomas, who's known as Jimmy McGrath. If you haven't watched my recap, I remembered to link it below in the description box. It's a summary of this entire case, so you may want to go look at that before jumping in. I know a lot of you like to listen to these at night when you're off work, through the night. I feel you. I do the very same thing. When I'm done here, I jump right into watching my 1-year-old and listening with my headphones on. But everything will be linked in the description box, and you can find all kinds of things there, including membership perks and whatnot. So I don't know if I had seen this anywhere yet. I actually hadn't seen this anywhere yet is what I was going to say. And I don't know if you had seen this anywhere yet, but I had a surprise in store. And again, I don't know if this is a big surprise. To me, it was. I freaked out this morning and I was telling John and I'm like, oh my God. I knew I recognized that ponytail from somewhere. I just couldn't pinpoint where that ponytail came from. And I'm talking about, if you're a law baddie, we're talking about Depp, who we're calling Depp. It's the defense attorney, Kevin Smith. I think he's a solid attorney, but the chats that I've been watching for these live cases, commenters don't think so. They think otherwise. Let me tell you, this isn't an easy case to defend, but you know what other case wasn't easy to defend? Fotis Dulos. Yeah. And Kevin Smith was one of Fotis's attorneys, along with Gray Ponytail, Norm Pattis. So I wanted to start by having us take a look at that. And this isn't the right scene. It's not him. Here he is. Is this a surprise? Did everybody know this? Am I the last person to realize that these people are the same people? But let's take a little, let's go back in time to this sad case, which, by the way, on my Dark Livity channel, we did a deep dive into the Fotis Dulos case and Jennifer Dulos, and it is a very heartbreaking case. So if you want to check that out, you can too. But let's just go ahead and listen to this real fast.
All right, first and foremost, I want to take the opportunity to thank the judicial marshals who have made this process, which was a long process and had some bumps in the road, as easy as it could be. They were the hallmark of professionalism, and we really want to express our gratitude.
This is him. This is him talking about Fotis posting bail years ago. I couldn't believe this. I was like, no wonder I noticed him.
Mr. Dulos is going to be coming out shortly and heading home, and we're happy to have that happen. He is relieved, as you might expect, and we are looking forward to the process of now defending this case. Going forward in court, as you all know, this
is like a blast from the past. Like, I can't, I was shocked. But here's the other one, because this was Norm Pattis, who was Fotis's main attorney, and apparently Kevin. Oh, and by the way, I think I forgot a very funny remark that Kevin Smith made, and I'm so upset because he said something like, I can relate, when he said, I think it was Griffin was testifying, and he said he was too short to look over some of the guys' heads during the fight, and he's like, I can relate. But anyway, and I just found that funny because I'm very short. But here we go. This was from when they were not prosecuting. Oh my gosh. When the prosecution was just charging, I guess.
Fully well to stand in front of you at some day with the charges against Mr. Dulos ended by way of an acquittal. Instead, they were nollied incident or as a result of his death.
Right. This is when the charges were removed because of his death. Oh my gosh, that was so crazy. I mean, that case is just so convoluted and insane. And I mean, there's so many details. I get everything mixed up when I haven't really touched on it in a long time. But, there we go. There's where the ponytails are from. I knew that I saw these men, because you know why I remembered this? Because so many people had ponytails in that courtroom. There were like 3 men on the same staff that had ponytails. So there we go. Okay, that was my little caveat of the day. I didn't want to take too much of your time, but I just thought that you would find that interesting. And now we're going to jump into this case for today, which is a very serious case. I don't want you to think just because I'm human and I can laugh and I can talk about other things that I don't understand the gravity of today's case. It's very, very heartbreaking. Today's first witness was the guy whose parents owned the house where the fatal fight occurred. And this is Tyler Rich. We've heard about Tyler. He's 21 years old now. He works as a plumber and he's in a family business. He was 18 and a senior at Shelton High School on May 14th of 2022. Tyler's going to go on to explain that the night started as a small hangout between friends. More and more people arrived, including some older friends who were home from college who came back for break and just wanted to say hello. Guests arrived about 7 or 8 p.m., I think he said, and drinking was casual. That was his opinion. He said he only had 1 or 2 beers, and he's going to identify several of his very close friends. Faison Teal, Tommy Connery, Ryan Hines, Jimmy McGrath, who he knew as a very close friend. This is the first time when I heard someone testifying, Kimber, that I really felt like they had been traumatized. I'm sure this was very traumatizing for a lot of them, but I could really tell that Tyler was affected by this, very affected by this. He said that Ryan and Griffin arrived at his house and he was told that Ryan got jumped. Now, in Tyler's perspective and what he said happened, he told them they could only stay until they got a ride. That didn't really coincide from what we already heard, because when Griffin was testifying, it was like they came there to initiate this fight. But maybe Tyler didn't have all the information because they weren't waiting for a ride, as far as I knew, from what we've heard. But Tyler says, there was beer, there was some seltzer at the party, there wasn't a keg. And he said, that's contrary to what the media portrayed them to be like. And apparently, because I didn't watch any of the news in this case, but they were portrayed as a bunch of wild, wasted kids getting rowdy and, causing a fatal fight to occur. So I want to get right in to this testimony. I found him to be very credible. That's just my opinion. Of course, you're going to have your own opinions. But let's begin trial day 3.
At some point in the evening.
Wait, I don't hear anything. This is what happened to me the other day where I didn't hear it and you guys said you did hear it. Tell me if I'm crazy and I don't hear it.
Was there an occasion where...
I feel like I'm only hearing it out of my right headphone. Tell me if that's a court thing.
People showed up to your house.
I don't even hear it out of my left headphone. So if you right now are listening with one headphone or one AirPod like I normally do, Law and Crime, who broadcasted this feed, and by the way, I had to go to Law and Crime because the other feed on the news, no audio. The audio was so bad. So you're going to have to listen apparently out of the right side of your headphones. And I apologize for that. That is not a me thing. That is a Law and Crime thing. Unless you can hear it. If you can hear it, by all means, wear both. It's only coming out of the right side of mine. So let's go ahead. If the sound is good for you, proceed with both headphones. Just wanted to tell anyone who's having my same problems. Here we go.
Also uninvited.
There was.
Can you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the circumstances surrounding that?
So after Hines and Griffin got there and I told them they couldn't stay, I'm not sure exactly how long after, somebody came up to me and said, supposedly...
Excuse me. Did you want to be heard on that?
I can rephrase the question.
All right, so I'll sustain the objection. I didn't think we didn't get out anything that was actually said, so I don't think there's anything to strike. Thank you.
So without telling us what people said, were you made aware that somebody showed up to your house?
Yes. It came to my knowledge that there was a car full of kids outside.
Let me show you State's Exhibit 30. What kind of car was it?
It was a green Honda Pilot SUV.
State's 30. Is that the vehicle that you recall seeing that night at your house?
Yes, it is.
Now, when that vehicle showed up to your house, State's Exhibit 49. When you were made aware that this car showed up at your house, where were you at that moment?
I was still in the basement, along with everybody else at the time.
And at some point in time, did you exit the basement?
We did.
How did you do that?
Through the Bilco doors, which are on the right side of my house, and kind of in front of the driveway, but it's on the right side of the house.
Show you State's 5. Can you kind of pinpoint where these Bilko doors would be?
So if you can see on the right side of the house, there's a AC unit. Just to the right of the AC unit, there is Bilko doors that go into the basement.
So Your Honor, I'm showing states 5 and...
In case you wondered, because we kept hearing about these Bilko doors, or somebody even called them umbilical doors. Am I wrong? I don't know if that's, I heard it. Is that an abbreviation? I don't think so. I thought it was more of a brand name, but I don't live in a place that has a cellar. You tell me. But this is where those doors to the house are, where everybody was coming out. So very close by this yard area, in case you're wondering about, where everything is.
And the record can reflect, I'm pointing to what appears to be an AC unit on the right side of the house, just in front of, which could be located in front of the blue pickup truck in a clearing through the trees. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, so noted. Thank you.
So when you came out the Bilko doors, what did you do when you came out the Bilko doors?
I walked down the driveway and we went across the street. The first thing I noticed when we got near the car was I was able to see through the windshield Tyler De Silva.
Let me point you there. So I'm going to show you states 49. Do you know where this car was parked when you came down the driveway?
Yeah, so it was on the lower right-hand side across the street.
I really appreciated how detailed Tyler's description was, because before this, remember, I'm not visual. I need to actually see, I can't see in my head what people are talking about unless they're very detailed. I was appreciative that he was really showcasing everything that happened, where people were, where the car was, because before this, I had a little bit of a confused version of where everything was happening.
Yep, right there, where you're pointing, in front of those trees.
The record could reflect, I'm pointing to the lower right-hand corner where there are some trees on, looks like the Laurel Glen, on the right side near the curve of Laurel Glen.
Is that
Correct.
Court also noted on the record. Thank you.
So when you noticed the car parked in that area, what, if anything, did you do?
Like I said, as I approached the car, I saw Tyler De Silva through the windshield, and I know who he is, given that his cousins used to live down the street from me. So I immediately went to the passenger side of the car to his window to talk to him and tell him that I don't know why you guys are here. You are not welcome at my house and you need to leave.
When the car arrived, are you familiar with any type of group chat that may have been going on?
I was not. I came to find out later that there was a group chat, but at the time of the event, I was not familiar with it.
Did you have any knowledge that Tyler De Silva was coming to your house that night?
No, I did not.
At that point, no. All right, so you go up. When you approach the car, what side of the car do you approach it?
I believe I went in front of the car and I went to the passenger front window.
So if you're approaching, if the car is parked on the side of the road here in States 49, is it facing Farmhouse Road or is it facing Adams?
It is facing Farmhouse up the street.
So you go to the passenger side?
Right.
And where is Tyler De Silva sitting?
He is in the front passenger seat.
And you have a conversation with him?
Yes.
And what do you tell him?
I tell him that I'm not sure why you guys are here, but you cannot stay here and you need to leave.
Some may think that maybe this isn't the way things went down. But if he didn't know about the group chat and it's his house and you're going to hear where his parents are soon, I would think it's very likely that he would say, I don't want any trouble. I don't know why you guys are here, because it already seems like, and he's going to explain, that they want something. They want to start something. This isn't, going to be a good scene. So I do believe him when he says that he didn't know about the group chat. This is his house. So he cares how many people are there, how crazy it's going to get, if his neighbors are going to start getting upset. So I do think he probably told them, hey, get out of here.
And did the car leave at that point?
No, he did not.
At that point in time, did you notice anybody else in the car?
At that point in time, I was able to hear people start to argue on the other side of the car. So I kind of looked through from the passenger window to the back driver's side of the car, and I was able to see Mackenzie Traficante and Raul Valle in the back seat.
Now,
so I'm just reading the comments. I don't think anyone said they saw Tyler with a knife. I haven't heard that yet. If that's in a different day, I have not heard that. The only person that anyone's seen with a knife has been the defendant, as far as the testimony I've already heard. So try not to jump ahead because we're only on day 3. I know it gets mixed up, so no worries if that's what's going on. I just have not heard that yet.
Are you familiar with Mackenzie Trafficante?
I am.
How are you familiar with her?
We grew up together. We were friends when we were younger before high school.
Did you go to school together?
We did.
Did you go to high school together?
No, we did not.
Do you know what school she went to?
She went to St. Joe's.
And you mentioned Raul Valle. Is Mr. Valle present in the courtroom today?
He is.
And what is he wearing?
A blue suit.
Can you point him out for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury? Your Honor, may the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant in this case?
All right, court will let the record reflect that. Thank you.
And when you noticed Mackenzie and the defendant, did you notice anybody else in the car at that moment?
I noticed that there was other kids in the car, just not sure exactly who they were.
Okay. But there were more kids in the car?
Yeah, probably 2 or 3.
All right. And when you're talking to Tyler De Silva and you're telling him to leave, tell me about the arguing that goes on the other side of the car. Withdrawn. When you noticed Mackenzie and the defendant in the car, where were they seated?
I believe she was in basically the middle of the back seat, and he was to the driver's side window of the back seat, from what I recall.
So he's seated behind the driver?
I believe so.
Okay. And you indicated there was some arguing going on. Do you know who was doing the arguing?
No, I do not.
When you heard that there was arguing going on the other side of the car, what, if anything, did you do next?
I walked around the front of the car again to see what was going on over there. And at that time, as I came around the front of the car, I saw something like get swung out the window. I wasn't exactly sure what it was at that point, and then I heard glass shatter, so I knew it was a glass bottle.
Do you recall what side of the car that came out of?
That came out of the driver back window.
So yes, I'm reading the chat, and try not to make spoilers. I know it's really hard because some people are watching ahead, but a lot of people are not, and they're recapping it with all of us here now. So let's just try to stay within exactly what we're hearing, and then we can comment on exactly what we're hearing. So for right now, without knowing anything else, I can imagine this being credible. He comes over to somebody he knows, which is someone he says he knows their cousins. He knows Tyler De Silva. And he's trying to say, hey, I don't know why you guys are here. He sees something, doesn't know what it is, been thrown out of the rear driver's side window. And then when it shatters, he realizes it's a glass bottle. His friends, we already know this, start yelling, rocking the car. And this I hadn't heard before. Didn't know what I thought about it when I first heard it. But Tyler, apparently, this Tyler, reaches into the car and tries to actually shift it into drive to force them to leave. The car then speeds off, and they are throwing things out of the window. He says they're throwing things at other people's cars, including a WD-40 can. So let's pick it up there.
Out of the car, it kind of seemed like they were like going through the trunk of the car to find whatever they could to throw, and there was a can of WD-40 and a few other things thrown out of the car at that time.
And when those things were thrown out of the car, what, if anything, did you do next?
I actually picked up the can of WD-40 and noticed that as the car went down the street, it kind of stopped right here on the corner of Laurel Glen and Farmhouse Lane.
And when you picked up the can of WD-40 and noticed the car stopped down the street near the corner of Farmhouse Lane and Laurel Glen, what did you do?
Me, Ricky, and I believe somebody else ran down the street. And as I ran down the street, I yelled, "Let's go, you pussies!" and threw the can at the back of the car, and then proceeded to tell them get back in their car and please to leave my house.
When he was explaining this, I was like, you say you're de-escalating, but are you? Because I don't think throwing things back at a car is de-escalating, but that's just my opinion. I was kind of like, okay. But I'm also remembering these are teenagers. Even if they are 19, 18, they're still teenagers. I don't know. You, just like the jury, are going to be able to tell whether somebody is credible or not. But he says that he throws that can back of the car and that they were throwing other things back of the car. Let's keep listening.
Did you notice anybody outside the car when you went down the street?
I did notice a couple kids outside the car, but I wasn't really paying attention exactly who it was.
When you went down the street, how many of your friends would you say went with you? You said you, Ricky, and another individual?
I believe that was it.
Okay. And when you went down the street, did you have any conversation with any of those kids that got out of the car?
Besides for just kind of yelling to get back in their car and get out of here, no.
When you went down the street, and you were screaming down the street. When you were screaming down the street, did you engage in any physical altercation with anybody from the car down the street?
No, we did not.
When you went down the street, aside from throwing the WD-40 can back at the car, did you have any weapons on you at that point?
No.
Do you know if Ricky Fiola had any weapons on him?
He did not.
After you threw the WD-40 can at the car, what, if anything, did you do next?
I started to walk back to the house because people were still outside, and I was trying to get everyone to go back inside the house. And as I was walking...
Let me stop you there. Play for 30 seconds. So, at some point in time, you tell them to get out, and you start walking back to the house.
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 44.
Now it's in both my headphones. Now it's the video again. This time I heard him say what he said. Let's go, you P words. I heard it this time. When they drive away so fast like that, it always makes my heart race.
So, you heard the individual yelling. That was you?
That was me, correct.
And at some point, I'll withdraw. That video only captured a certain section of what occurred down the street. Fair?
Yeah, correct.
After you had a conversation with, well, do you remember who you had a conversation with down the street?
Not specifically, no.
But the overall message you were giving when you got down there was
that they needed to leave.
And at some point in time, you say you walked back down towards your house?
I did.
Okay, and that means you're going back from Farmhouse Road back down towards Adams?
Correct.
And when you're going back towards your house, what, if anything, happens when you're walking back?
So as I started to walk, one of the kids down there picked that can of WD-40 up and threw it at me again. So I picked the can up and continued to walk towards the house, which is when the defendant came off the side of the bushes and was approaching me, and I told him to get the F out of here, and then I proceeded to tell him not to come near me, and instead of saying anything, he kept approaching me, so I used the can of WD-40 to distance myself and kind of just started spraying it in his direction.
I was a little bit shocked when I heard this. I know it seems warranted the way he's explaining it, but I did question it. I'm just doing what a jury would do. I'm questioning it. I'm thinking, okay, and you had to spray him with WD-40? I mean, maybe he felt threatened. He wanted to create distance. I almost feel like an attorney told him to say it that way, like you were spraying it because you were trying to create some distance. But I hadn't heard this before, that the defendant jumped out of the bushes and that Tyler sprayed him with WD-40 in the face. But apparently that's what Tyler said happened.
Which stopped him in his tracks, and then I didn't engage anything else with him. I continued walking back to the house and telling everybody else that they needed to go back inside.
Now, when you say he came out of the bushes, do you recall where on the street he came out of the bushes?
Yeah, so like he came from these bushes right here on the edge. He like came off the side of them, and as I was walking, I like heard a stick or something break, so I turned my head, and that's when he was approaching me.
And how was his demeanor as he was approaching?
He was just walking towards me with a straight face and not saying anything, but as if he was approaching me to try and start something.
Little crazy, but I can't get into the mind of someone else if they feel they need to use that kind of force in a way. I mean, it is just a can of WD-40, but it is a chemical. It is somebody's face. I didn't know how I felt about that when I first heard it. But now he says that he's walking back to his house. And when he gets there, somebody who we haven't even learned who says they're back. And he comes outside to see Tyler Da Silva and the defendant on his lawn again. And he again asks him to leave, and that is when he gets pushed. So let's hear that part. I'm trying to run through this a little faster because I feel like last night dragged on a little bit. I'm glad we went very deep, but I'm trying to make sure I'm highlighting the most important parts.
The defendant and Mr. Silva on your front lawn, what, if anything, did you do when you noticed them on your lawn?
So again, I approached Tyler DeSilva because I knew who he was, and I've known his cousins for a long time, and basically was telling him, not in a nice manner, but that he needed to get the F off my property and get back in the car and leave. And that is when he decided to continue to argue with me. And I said right to him, dude, I have known your family and your cousins for a very long time. Please get back in your car and don't do this. And he then responded and told me to go F myself and that I didn't know anything about his family and shoved me backwards.
Now, when that happened, were there a lot of people outside?
Yes, there was.
How many people would you say were outside?
Pretty much everybody there, so about 20.
Can you guys let me know if my audio is corresponding with theirs, whether it's like higher, lower, perfect, okay? Because sometimes people are listening and then I come back on and they have to turn it up. And then they come back on, they have to turn it down. So just let me know. I think I got it lined up well, but sometimes the court changes.
20 to 30.
And when you were talking to Tyler DeSilva, who was near you at that moment? Do you recall?
I do not recall.
Do you recall, was there anybody close to the defendant while this was going on?
There was a few kids near the defendant at the time. I'm not sure exactly who, but I do know that Ty Wood was one of those kids.
And how do you know Ty Wood?
Our families are very close. His older brother and my older brother played football together. I've known each other forever. I played football with Ty. I was his captain when he was a sophomore and I was a senior. And I've also coached his younger brother's team. But Ty is about as close to a younger brother as it gets for me.
This is going to become important because we're hearing him say, Ty is like a brother, the closest thing to a brother, Ty Wood. We're just now hearing more about him. So what happens next is going to seem warranted given that he just told you about that.
And I look at him as my younger brother.
And when you noticed that Ty Wood was near the defendant, did you notice anybody else near the defendant at this moment?
I did, but I couldn't tell exactly who. I believe Hines was over there as well.
And when you say Hines, Ryan Hines?
Correct.
And tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, when you were arguing back and forth with Tyler DeSilva, what, if anything, happened during that?
As I was saying, he proceeded to tell me to go F myself and that I didn't know anything about his family, and then got physical with me and shoved me backwards. And I didn't go right at him or anything, but now that he had shoved me back, Lito was more so in my vision, not so peripheral to me, so I was able to see him better. And he was only a few feet away, and this is when I saw Ty Wood had his head turned and Lito went to swing on him, so I stepped up into it and punched him in the face instead.
So now you hear he stepped in and he punched the defendant in the face because he was preparing to hit the guy he considers like a little brother. So he was defending Ty Wood. This is what he says. Because he was about to get sucker punched. And we know that the defendant had already sucker punched, allegedly, Ryan Hines, who was also there that night seeing this all go down. And at this point, they fall to the ground. Tyler says that he's on the ground holding on to DeSilva's arms, trying to stop from being hit. And he says others may have been throwing punches as well. And after the fight, Tommy tells Tyler that he's been stabbed. And Tyler also sees Ryan and Jimmy McGrath and Faison Teal. They had been stabbed too. And Tyler and others begin tying off wounds with shirts. And this is when he really was struggling emotionally because he's trying to help his friends. Jimmy's fighting for his life. And then police and EMTs arrive. Tyler gave multiple statements. And initially, he said that he saw the defendant flash a knife. But later, he clarifies that he only heard it from others and he didn't see a weapon himself. So let's go because we got to hear some of the things that happened and what he said that contradicted what he initially told police. And this actually happens on cross.
And I want to go over some of what you've been telling us today. You would agree some of what you told us today you've never told anybody else before, right?
No, I wouldn't agree to that.
You would not agree to that? Who else did you tell about the can of WD-40?
I have told the state's detectives, and whenever it has been asked about, I have been telling them about it. Correct.
Whenever it has been asked about?
No, so that was something that I couldn't fully remember the night of, having the trauma of everything else. It was more so the main event of what happened on the front yard. That was something that had come back to me later on, but as soon as I had remembered it and was in any kind of interview again, I had brought it up and told them about it.
Would you be surprised to learn, sir, that that did not ever appear in any of the statements that you gave prior?
No, I would not, because as I said, those statements were prior to me being able to remember that.
Gotcha. So you've remembered it now today?
Yes, and prior to this.
You did?
It's a good point by the defense, right? You're now remembering the WD-40, but you never told police that. But this was a very traumatic experience.
You didn't remember it when you gave a statement on May 15th at 12:43 a.m. that you wrote in your own hand, right?
The following day?
12:43 a.m. on the 15th, that's right.
No, I did not.
And that was your own handwritten statement, correct?
I believe so.
Didn't mention the can of WD-40 then, did you?
No, because I hadn't remembered it.
Right. You spoke with Officer Nembhard. You didn't tell him anything about the WD-40 can, correct?
When was that?
Also on the 15th of May?
No.
And then again on the 15th of May when you spoke with Officer Giddin, you didn't mention anything about this can of WD-40, did you?
No, so on the 15th of May, that was not something I had recalled.
And it wasn't something that you recalled when you spoke again to Officers Bitko and Staples at 11:25 a.m. with your father in your living room. No mention of that can of WD-40, correct?
Not that I recall, but what day was that?
The 15th.
So yeah, anything on the 15th, I had no recollection of that on the 15th.
And then again, when you spoke with Officers Bango and Iannotti on the 18th, because they wanted to clarify, as you've said, your statement, you didn't mention anything about the WD-40 at that date either, did you?
No, I did not.
Interesting, right? So he gave multiple statements, May 15th, multiple statements, then on the 18th, and he didn't mention the can. He says he remembered it later and told detectives at that point because he was traumatized, which could be plausible. I could see how this could be very traumatic, but could also see how you might not want to insert yourself having done anything that may look like it instigated it any further.
But you're telling us about the can of WD-40 today.
Correct, because once I recalled it, I have not tried to hide it or anything at all.
Okay. So you were telling us that this party at your house began sometime in the area of 7 to 8 o'clock that day on the 14th, correct?
Yeah, around that time.
You were hanging out in the basement, correct?
Correct.
What was going on in the basement was maybe drinking a few beers, right?
I definitely know I had one or two, and I do know that there was other kids drinking as well.
Okay, so it wasn't maybe drinking a few beers. There was beers being drunk,
No,
right?
I said I drank a few beers.
Right. You said that maybe people were drinking a few beers.
No, people were drinking a few beers. There was
Definitely drinking a few beers.
definitely had a few beers.
I'm laughing because it's just, yeah, you guys drank beers. Like, there's no reason at this point. They're not going to get in trouble for it. But remember, the defense is going to bring this up every time. Like in Karen Reed, they had their theories and they had to repeat them over and over again for every witness, and we get sick of hearing it. But we know they're building their case. There is a big reason why the defense is trying to show that all of these teenagers were drinking, even if they had one beer. Did they have two? Are they lying about multiple? He's going to keep bringing that up. But he admits he was 18. He drank one or two beers, but he was trying to keep everything under control, according to him.
Yes.
You yourself only had one or two?
Yes.
You sure about that?
I'm positive.
How are you positive about that?
Because I know I didn't drink more than that. It was my house. I already had more people show up than were supposed to be there. I was making sure that everything stayed under control.
But when you say everything stayed under control, you were 18 at the time?
I was.
So you were breaking the law by drinking those one or two beers, correct?
Yeah.
But you considered that to be keeping things under control?
I mean, we were dumb high school kids.
That's a remark.
I think everybody's had a few beers in high school, but I think I also had everything in control until the point where the defendant and the car full of his friends arrived at the house.
Gotcha. It was all under control until that point. Did you tell your folks that you're going to be having this party over at the house that night?
No, I did not.
Mom was going to Cape Cod?
Yes.
And Dad was out somewhere?
Yes.
So now you know. Please no spoilers in the chat if you can. I know it's hard, but we're only on this part of the trial. But yes, his parents, they didn't know about the party. His mom was in Cape Cod. His dad had evening plans. Now we know because so many people asked, did his parents know about the party? But Tyler also insists he didn't know about any group chat that, Ryan and Griffin had coordinated an arrival there to fight. He also made a good point when it came to the number of people fighting. And I hope I got this right here. Let me see if it's in this next clip or this one.
You told us that you had a few folks there that you identified. One of those was Faison Teal.
Correct.
Another one was Tommy Connery.
Correct.
Ryan Hines.
Correct.
And Jimmy McGrath.
Correct.
And you said that as far as those 4 folks go, these were kids that you had all grown up with, played football with, friends with, correct?
Correct.
And the same goes for Ricky Fiola. You grew up with him. He was part of your friend group, and you played football together?
Correct.
He's going to say this, and it is interesting.
Before them, it was Griffin and Hines.
And so at that point, before Tanner and Alex show up, there were about 30 people at your house.
Total, yeah, there was about 30, but I would say probably only 18 to 20 of them were boys, and there was probably about 10 to 12 girls who obviously didn't partake in anything that happened that night.
Okay. 18 to 20 boys, and then we also have to add in Tanner and Alex when they get there, correct?
Well, that 18 to 20, I would say, is with them, but if you want to say another 2 on top, I guess that's okay too.
The reason why I thought this was pretty good of him to explain it that way, and he made a good point, is that he had been told by cops, because they gave him a list, that there were 32 people there. But some were girls who definitely weren't fighting, for one. And also, people were just standing around. They were watching. They were not getting involved in the actual fight. So it wasn't like a mob fighting 2 kids. That was the point that Tyler's trying to make. So I thought that was interesting.
Fair to say you didn't count the folks that were there, right?
Not that night, no.
So when you say 18 to 20 or 22, you're guessing, is that fair to say?
No, I'm not guessing. I was actually brought a list by the Shelton PD of names with about, I don't even know how many people on it from both parties, and went through it and was able to identify, I believe it was 32 total people that were there.
Okay, so there were 32
I could be
people
wrong
there.
on that exact number, but it was definitely somewhere in the 30s.
And that was based on a list of names that the police gave you?
Correct.
You didn't give them the names?
No, they had names from statements and other names that have come up through the night.
And then you said, yeah, there may have been a little bit of drinking, just beer and seltzers, but not what it was made to be by the media. What did you mean by that?
Correct. This wasn't a alcohol-fueled 70 to 100 person party. This was just a big group of friends catching back up, and we were casually drinking a few.
It might not have been 70 to 100, but I don't know if he can say it wasn't alcohol-fueled. Y'all were drinking. I think with you mixed teenagers, drinking, testosterone, ego, rivals, the media may be blowing it out of proportion, but I think they might be onto something as well.
Few beers. We weren't throwing cans around and drinking bottles of vodka and all that. We were just casually having a few drinks.
But initially, you didn't tell the cops that there had been this drinking going on there, correct?
I'm not sure.
Well, when you spoke to them that night and gave them your handwritten statement, you didn't write anything in that statement about drinking going on at the party, correct?
I do not believe so.
Why not?
Like I said, the main focus that night was 20 minutes after a traumatic event where I just watched 4 of my best friends get stabbed, and I unfortunately had to watch one of them bleed out in my front yard.
Sounds like that's a good reason why you may not have remembered every detail what happened that night, right? But I do want to acknowledge something at the end. I'm going to wait till the end because I don't want to disrupt what we're hearing in the moment. But at the end, I do want to talk a little bit about self-defense again, because last time I think we did a really good job going back and forth, and everyone's welcome here, by the way. Whether you're on one side or the other, we don't even know yet, right? Because we haven't heard all the testimony. But it's okay. We're thinking, we're observing. We're trying not to judge, but we're observing, and we're making intelligent guesses about what we might think and feel from what we're hearing. But let's continue. because he says that he chose to confront Tyler De Silva at the car prior to this altercation because he was an acquaintance through his cousins. Remember Tyler's cousins? De Silva. There's a lot of Tylers.
And you said that you went immediately up to Tyler De Silva, who you could see through the windshield, correct?
Correct.
And that's because you knew Tyler De Silva, right?
I didn't know him. I knew who he was, and I knew of him because, as I said before, I grew up with his cousins who lived down the road from me.
Right. And you thought that you also knew his older brother, correct?
I have met him a time or two.
And you thought that you had enough rapport with Tyler De Silva that you could talk to him, right?
Correct. I thought that if anyone was going to be the one I was going to talk to get them to leave, that I had my best chance with him.
And you told us again that at that time you weren't aware of the group chat, right?
No, I was not.
You didn't know Griffin Marcinzik was live texting this thing,
No.
taking photos.
I didn't find out about the group chat until I believe the next day or the following day when Officer Staples came to my house.
Okay. And you were standing on the grass on the other side of Laurel Glen Drive talking to Tyler through the passenger side window, correct?
Correct.
And at this point, the car is facing Farmhouse Lane, right?
Yes, it was.
And you noticed that people were arguing on the other side of the car, right?
Yes, I did.
And in fact, you told Officer Giddon that you recognized inside the car Mackenzie Traffic County, correct?
Yes.
As well as Caitlin and Autumn Murphy, correct?
I never said that.
You never told Officer Giddon that you saw Caitlin and Autumn Murphy inside the Pilot?
Not to my knowledge.
Do you know Caitlin and Autumn Murphy?
I do know who they are.
Who are they?
They are two girls that went to Shelton schools with us when we were younger, and they both also went to St. Joseph's High School.
Okay, and were they at your party as part of the...
No, they were not.
And you claim that you did not tell Officer Giddon that you also saw Caitlin and Autumn Murphy in that car?
I don't believe I did. And if I had said that, it was me saying that I had heard somebody else say that they were.
This was important, right? Sorry to cut it right there, but I'm always like thinking ahead. It's important. If you're telling the police one thing, the defense is going to point that out. You told them that these two girls were in the car and they weren't even at your party. It's kind of a big deal. So what this brings into question is like, are you sure you saw what you think you saw? If you can't even remember whether these two girls were at your party or not, maybe you can't remember whether the defendant had a knife in his hand.
In the car. So that should have been clarified.
Okay, there was a lot of people talking after the fact, right?
I mean, yeah, we talked about it.
Right, everybody was trading information.
Somewhat, yeah.
And you would agree that some of that information just simply wasn't true, right?
Objection to, how would he know?
I'll sustain it to the extent that it is broad. Counsel, if you want to limit it.
Did you come to learn that some of that information that you received was not actually true?
I guess we could say little bits and pieces, but nothing that was relevant to what had taken place that night.
Well, you told the officers that you saw the defendant flashing a knife, right?
Well, they brought me back in to clarify that.
You told the officers that, correct?
This is what gets interesting because he wasn't the one that saw the knife, but you'll hear what happened because he told police that he saw the defendant flashing said knife.
No, I believe I wrote that.
Well, when you wrote that, who were you writing that for, Mr. Rich?
I was writing that for the police.
So you told the police that you saw the defendant flashing a knife, correct?
At the time I wrote it like that. But as I said before, they brought me back in to clarify that I never saw the knife, not one time the entire night.
You didn't volunteer that information later, right? When you said, gosh, hold on a second, I told those officers I saw a knife, but I didn't. I better go clarify it.
This is like Jen McCabe when her husband's like, wait a minute, what did you tell the FBI? And she's like, oh, I lied. And then he's like, you better correct it. You better go clarify, right? That's not what happened here. He didn't. They came back to clarify, and that's when they realized that he had heard this from somebody else.
You didn't do that, right?
I did do that.
You went to them and said, I need to clarify this for you?
So they had called me and told me that there was a few things in my statement that they wanted to double check. So they brought me back in, and immediately when they said, did you actually see him with the knife with your own two eyes? I said, no, I did not.
Okay. So again, that's not something you volunteered until they said, hey, we want to clarify a few things between your statements, right?
If you want to put it that way, I guess, but that was just because it was not to my knowledge.
Well, you didn't tell them that on the 15th, right?
No, I did not.
You didn't tell them that on the 16th, right?
No, I did not.
Didn't tell them that on the 17th, right?
No, I did not.
And it wasn't until the 18th when they called you and said, we need to clarify some things. We think there's some discrepancies in your statement that you then told them you hadn't actually seen.
Correct,
correct?
because prior to that, I didn't even know that it was something on there that needed to be clarified. So as soon as they brought me in and asked me, did you actually see the knife? I said, no, I did not.
You didn't know that when you wrote at 12:43 a.m. in your own hand that you saw a kid named Lito flashing a knife. You didn't know that that was something that you needed to clarify because it wasn't something you'd actually seen?
No, sir. At the time when I wrote that, as I said, it was a very traumatic experience for us. I've never had to give a statement before, and I've never had to write one, so I didn't know that that was something I couldn't write off of hearing it from somebody else.
That was actually a really good point. Whether he was coached on that, whether, he's practiced this and had a comeback for that, or if it were true, I tend to think that that is true. I don't know what I would write in a statement. I mean, I've gone to law school. I talk about true crime on a regular basis. We probably know that when you're writing a statement, it's what you heard and saw. It's not what somebody else saw and now you're writing it down. But for an 18 or 19-year-old, I think he was 18, I don't know if I would have known how to write a statement. And maybe I wouldn't know that I couldn't just say what everyone saw as facts. So I think that's a good way to put it if that were true, which seems like it could be, but you could always give me your opinion. We always want to think for ourselves. Does this witness seem credible? Because that is what the jury is going to have to find out. So now we're going to skip over to another section. And this, I believe, is when the ring cam footage, he's going to talk about the timeline on the ring cam footage. That's what I think this is. On the tiniest court screen I've ever seen.
Can we pause it right there? You recall seeing this video just shortly ago?
Yes.
And this is shot from the ring camera on 36 Laurel Glen Drive, which is the house down Laurel Glen Drive there on Exhibit 1 by the corner of Farmhouse Lane, correct?
Yes.
Now, in this video, Mr. Rich, do you see somebody already walking ahead of this last illumination?
Remember, you can zoom in on your iPads, your phones, the screen, you can pinch it and zoom all the way in. I did last night. Not only did I hear things that I hadn't heard before when I had my headphones on and I was really listening, but I saw things I didn't see before.
Tree that we see there?
Over here on the corner?
I'm going to point over here. See this last illuminated tree to the far right? Just past one of the columns.
Yeah, do I see anyone over there?
You see somebody walking right here ahead.
I can't tell.
Okay, can we start that from the beginning? And I'd ask you to focus your attention, see if you can notice that this person's walking. Do you see somebody walking there?
I do.
Do you see that there's a vehicle? We just heard doors and cars stop. And we see somebody else walking
Correct.
by the vehicle, in front of the vehicle, correct?
I do see that.
So those folks are already out of the car, and now we're hearing some yelling, correct?
Yep.
And from the left, we're starting to see your group, right?
Correct.
I count 1, 2, 3, 4. Would you agree 4 people so far?
Right.
Now I see a 5th person coming. Do you see that?
I do.
Do you see other folks coming as well? 6, 7.
The reason why this is important is because he had initially said there were only 3 of them that went forward and started walking down the street and all that. Now there's 7 plus, possibly.
You see those other folks?
I do see more, yes.
And those people are all coming from the direction of your home, correct?
So as it appears, yes.
You would agree that there was at least 2 people that were out of that vehicle, correct?
Prior to us walking down,
Prior to you walking down.
I would agree.
Okay. And that then a group of at least 7 of you were seen on that video, correct?
That's how it appears, but as I said, to my knowledge, the only one I knew was with me was Ricky, and I thought there was at least one more of us. Clearly there was more than that.
And in fact, you walked past and had some interactions with people that had already gotten out of the vehicle, correct?
I did.
But you don't recall any of that, fair to say?
I didn't say I don't recall any of that. I just don't recall who was actually out of the vehicle.
Well, you told us that you didn't have any interactions with the people in the vehicle at that point, correct?
Other than telling them to get out of there and that they needed to go, not really, no.
Sorry, I had a phone call in the middle of that and I had to run and go get my phone. But you tell me because for me, maybe he didn't see as many people and now you're watching a video back. So I think if someone showed me a video of the night instead of me being involved in the night, there would probably be discrepancies because I can't see everything that's going on. And I didn't hear everything right before I had to go get my phone. But I know that the defense is going to challenge about why he didn't call 911. Is that what we just heard? I probably missed some of it. But I'm going to keep going. I think this is when he's challenging about why didn't you just call 911? Hold on one second. I think we just heard that. Yeah, I think we just heard that, but I was going to get my phone and I apologize. I think when he said he didn't expect it to escalate into violence, maybe not at that point. I know when I was growing up, a lot of crazy things happened and we didn't call the police because we thought, you know what, it's just going to die down. It's just some high school stuff, right? But things didn't die down. And is that the fault of this group of kids? Were they instigating more? And now the first punch is going to be confirmed by Tyler. He's going to admit, like we already heard, that he punched the defendant first, tackled De Silva to the ground so that he could not hit him.
I didn't see any of that going on after, because after I had hit the defendant, that was the last time I ever saw him that entire night, because as I said, when I was getting punched in the back of the head, my focus had turned to Tyler De Silva at this point, who I ended up on the ground with instead.
He did not see the knife because of the fact that he was currently trying to defend himself, according to him.
Now, again, you're telling us today that you swung and hit Mr. Valle in the face that evening, but you didn't tell that to the officers when you spoke to them on the 15th a couple times, or the 18th, correct?
I guess not. I had told them I was in the fight and there was only 2 kids that I could have been fighting with, so.
You didn't tell them that you threw the first punch?
I guess not. At the time, I guess not, no.
And you say
So that's important, I would think. He didn't tell them that he threw the first punch.
that you went to the ground and that Mr. De Silva was on top of you?
Correct.
And that he was swinging and you tied up his arms, right?
Correct.
Really good point by Mallory. I think we should keep in mind this all happened in mere minutes. Trying to break it down second by second and remembering every single person, that's hard. I agree. I really do agree. And that's what I meant by, like, when you're in it, you're going to be seeing one thing. If someone showed me a bird's eye view of my entire day, I would probably see things that I didn't even know were happening. I feel like this is when the defense is going to try to get in a bunch of already answered questions, but let's just listen to this part.
And that you couldn't see much after that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I was on the ground underneath him, so I couldn't see anything.
And despite having told officers originally that you'd seen Lito with a knife, ultimately what you told us here today is that you didn't see the defendant with a knife, correct?
I had never seen the knife that entire night with my own eyes at all.
Wow.
That despite a number of opportunities to tell the police as much as what you have recalled today, you didn't actually tell them any of those things regarding the WD-40 cannon.
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
These are all the sustained ones because they were already asked and answered. I mean, to be fair. But remember, this can also be a tactic because he wants to be the last one to get these words out for the jury to remember so that he can kind of impeach this witness, right?
Is it fair to say that despite having a number of opportunities, you didn't tell them that you were the person who first punched Mr. Valle?
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
Is it fair to say that you didn't call the police that night at any point?
Objection, asked and answered.
I'll allow that one.
No, I did not call the police at any point that night.
And you told officers that you had seen the defendant with a knife, despite the fact that now you're telling us you never saw him with a knife, correct?
No, I did not.
Sustained. Strike the last answer, please. Thank you.
He's like, what else are you going to ask me, buddy?
Just one moment, Your Honor. Mr. Rich, there were essentially 2 fights going on in the front yard, were there not?
As far as what I'm aware of, I can only speak for what was going on with me and Tyler De Silva at the time I was on the ground with him because I could not see anything else.
And how many people were engaged with Mr. De Silva when you were also on the ground with him?
To my knowledge, just me and him. Do I think people could have thrown a couple shots at him? It's possible, but from what I could see, just me and him were on the ground. But
When you say it's possible that other people could have thrown shots at him, you've viewed the video of the fight, correct?
Correct.
You see people throwing shots at him, correct?
Correct.
It's not just possible. That happened, didn't it?
Yeah, so a couple kids did throw a couple shots in after, but I could not see that from where I was on the ground.
Okay.
Right. That was the point that Mallory was saying as well. It's like, how would you know if you're in it, if someone's got you on the ground, how are you going to know what happened? Yeah, you saw a video, so now I guess you could testify to the fact that, like, yes, there was a lot going on. But if you're asking me what I saw, it's kind of confusing if the defense attorney is going to say, like, what did you see that night? As opposed to, okay, now that you've seen everything, what do you know happened that night? That's hard. It has to be really clear, or else a witness is going to kind of get confused and not know whether he already got in trouble for saying he saw something that a friend saw. There was a short redirect, and Tyler clarifies that Tanner and Alex arrived after the Honda first drove down the street, but before it returned again. He was in the front yard when they showed up, and Tyler reiterates he never saw the defendant flashing a knife, that he heard someone else say it and mistakenly included it in his original statement out of the trauma and the confusion.
Counsel asked you a little bit about your statement to police initially. You had indicated that you had seen, well, at least according to your statement, you indicated that you had told the cops that he was flashing a knife. Where did that information come from? Did you actually see that happen?
No, I never saw that.
So why would you tell the cops that a kid named Lito was flashing a knife?
It was something I had overheard that night, and as a 18-year-old kid who's never had to go through something traumatic like that, I didn't know that I couldn't write something in my statement without physically seeing it. So I was brought back in to clarify that. I didn't see that.
So based on the fact that you have 4 of your friends that were stabbed on the front lawn, what was your immediate what was your intuition? What was your reason for telling the cops what you did at that moment, with regards to what you saw at that moment? Did you have a reason why you didn't recall the WD-40 can or anything like that? Why did you say what you did?
Yeah, of course. I mean, in that time period, like I've been saying, I was an 18-year-old kid who just watched 4 of my best friends get stabbed in my front yard where I grew up at my own house, and having to go through that, I believe that there was just certain things that my mind was putting out of my head, and I was more focused on the events that took place during the actual fight itself.
Good points. And some of you made it in the comments. The trauma, he believes, caused memory gaps. We even heard someone testify in Karen Reed's trial about how your memory can be affected by a traumatic event even months afterwards. And part of me, when he's confirming, okay, I didn't talk about the WD-40, I didn't talk about the first punch, but the memories started to return as he was being asked questions. I almost wanted to say, like, this is going to sound bad coming from me that's supposed to be really, I don't know, like seeing things both ways. But I was like, who cares? I understand this is very important. It does matter. But about little things like, okay, was there 5 kids that ran forward or was there 3? But for the defense, it does matter. But when I think about the car, they could have left at any time. They had a car. I'm not sure why they stayed to fight these kids. It makes no sense to me. Ego was all I could think about. And the defendant was there with his girlfriend. Maybe he wanted to look big and bad, not wanting to give up, not wanting to be looked like as a wimp. But there was one more cross by the defense. He asked if the reasons why he left out things like the WD-40 was to protect his friends. And Tyler denies that, saying he wasn't trying to hide anything. Again, it was due to the trauma. He wasn't fully processing everything. So I thought that was interesting, right? I don't know why, but I was getting a little bit annoyed with some of this just because, I don't know, it almost felt like the defense attorney at this point was just trying to kind of make him mad.
Now, on a subsequent occasion, did you eventually... 44.
Get there in 1 second.
You see yourself throwing the can at the car? There were.
Hold
He
on.
was
This is still the state.
Yeah.
down the street.
Nah.
So if there were at least 7 people.
Hang on, I'm so sorry. I should have done it without sound. Oh, here it is. I was getting a little annoyed. I don't know. It was just getting to me because it was the same questions over and over again.
You told us that part of the reason that you were unable to recall some of what you told us today was due to the trauma, correct, of this incident?
Correct.
So it wasn't that you wanted to minimize the involvement of your friends on that evening.
What do you mean by that?
As far as why you weren't able to recall these things when you were talking to police officers beforehand, it wasn't because you wanted to minimize the involvement that your friends had.
You mean like try to hide things my friends did?
Correct.
No, I wasn't trying to minimize anything.
You weren't trying to protect your friends from any sort of police investigation.
I mean, no, that's nothing that's inside of my control anyways.
And then you had been asked about telling that to folks on a subsequent occasion about the WD-40 and about throwing the first punch. Do you recall that question?
Can you repeat that?
Sure. The state's attorney asked you that about not telling folks about the WD-40 or about the throwing of the punch, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then he asked you, but you did tell them that on a subsequent occasion, correct?
Correct.
And that subsequent occasion was today, correct?
No.
Nothing further.
I think it was because in this moment, I think the defense was losing their arguments. You can tell me. Some of you don't like him right off the bat, especially now that you know that he defended Fotis Doulos. I get it. But they do have to do a job, right? We need defense attorneys. But let's just go on to the next witness. This next witness is Aiden King. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. He's 20 years old. He works at a dog daycare. I was not sleeping, but I was falling asleep when I heard this. And I was like, oh, just because I love dogs. But he's at a dog daycare and was 17 during the incident in 2022. He knew the victims, and many of them he knew from high school football. He knew Jimmy. He knew Faison, Ryan Hines, Tommy, and Tyler Rich, the person we just saw on the stand. Aiden went to Tyler Rich's party that night around 8 o'clock. He said, and I was glad that he admitted to this because unlike others who said I had one beer, and maybe they did have one beer, but he was just straight up. He's like, I drank 5 to 7 Bud Lights. But he said it was a casual gathering with friends. They were listening to music, and he heard that there had been a previous altercation at Lazy Brook Road. People were in the basement. They were talking about somebody coming up there in a car that night, and that is when he went outside to investigate. So let's listen.
At point in time, did you approach the car?
Yes.
Okay. And when you approach the car, how was the car facing? So if we're looking at 49, we can agree this house here is Tyler Rich's house?
Yes.
This would be Adams Road.
Yes.
The car, the street that's I'm pointing to, that's in the lower left-hand corner of the picture. And this is Royal Lake.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which way was the car facing? Do you recall? Was it facing towards Farmhouse, which is down here?
It was facing towards Farmhouse.
And when did you approach the car?
Yes.
What side of the car did you approach?
I approached the rear side behind the passenger. I mean, the driver.
So if this is the car here, and this is the driver's side here, you're somewhere over here, but maybe near the rear passenger side?
Yes, behind the driver.
Behind the driver?
Yep.
Okay. And when you approached that side of the vehicle, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what happened at that point?
The window was rolled down, and I looked inside, and I saw Lito, Mackenzie, and Tyler De Silva. Those are the only ones I knew of in the car that I could recognize, and proceeded to have conversation.
Do you recall whether or not there were any other people in the car at that point?
There were others, yes.
Did you recognize any of them?
I did not.
Now, you said that you recognized Tyler De Silva?
Yes.
How do you know Tyler De Silva?
I've seen him before, just around at other parties from other high schools.
And Mackenzie, who's Mackenzie?
She is someone who went to St. Joe's, but before St. Joe's, went to middle school and with her. So.
Somebody asked in the chat if any of the defendants' group of friends, well, we don't know any of the defendants' group of friends because his haven't testified yet. I'm sure they're going to be testifying for the defense. That's what I would assume, although the state can call the defendant's friends, right? And ask what they saw that night. But right now we're hearing the state's case. So no, we haven't gotten to anything about the defendant and his friends, what was going on in his mind, because that's going to be very important. So that's why I always tell people, and this isn't directed to you, I'm just saying to everyone, we have to wait this whole trial out until we hear from the defense and their case, because they haven't even started. Right now, they're just responding to the state's case.
You grew up with her?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
What's her last name?
Trafficante.
And you said...
And by the way, don't feel bad answering in the chat or asking questions. That's why I'm here. That's why I do it live. I want you to ask questions. Don't feel stupid. We're all at a different pace listening to this case.
Lito.
Yes,
Does Lito have a different name?
he does.
What is his name?
His real name's Raul.
And is that individual present in the courtroom today?
Yes, he is.
And can you please describe what he's wearing?
He's wearing a blue suit, black tie, white undershirt.
Can you please point him out for the record?
He's right there.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant in this case?
Court will allow the record to reflect that. Thank you.
Now, when you said that you had a conversation with Mackenzie, Tyler, and Lito.
It was Lito and Mackenzie. I was obviously
So you were talking to where was Lito seated in the car?
behind the driver's side.
Behind the driver's side. So we hadn't heard that yet. At least I hadn't really gotten a perspective, but I know that Jack Snyder was driving. I'm not really sure who was in the passenger seat. I'm guessing it was Tyler DeSilva because we heard that somebody came up to that side, and that was Tyler Rich saying that. And then we're just now hearing where the defendant was sitting.
Where was Mackenzie seated?
Next to him on the right side of him.
And you had a conversation with the two of them?
Yes.
Did you have
So they were in the back seat. So him and his girlfriend were in the back seat.
a particular conversation with the defendant?
Yes.
And tell ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what happened? What was said?
So there was just a lot of back and forth going on.
When you say back and forth, what does that mean?
Like people were yelling outside, for him to leave, but I was having a direct conversation with him, talking normally at first, but then he proceeded to threaten to smash a bottle on someone's head if they didn't back away from the car.
And after the defendant said he would smash a bottle on somebody's head if they didn't back away from the car, what if anything happened next?
After that, I just said, no, don't do that. And then I backed away. I walked back to the end of the driveway.
Did you ever, during your conversation with the defendant, ever tell the defendant or anybody else in that car to leave?
Yes.
How many times?
Like 3 or 4 times.
So now we're hearing from different people that they did tell this group of kids to leave 3 or 4 times during this confrontation, which started out as him just talking to the defendant. The defendant allegedly threatened to smash a bottle over somebody's head if they didn't back away from the car, but they can drive away. However, remember, the defense was pointing out, weren't there people surrounding the vehicle that would have gotten hit if the car started going forward? Well, I almost feel like saying, well, that's your fault. If you're standing in front of a car, they're free to leave. So you need to get out of the way. You shouldn't be trapping them anywhere. We did see them go forward. Luckily, no one did get hit, but we're now hearing from someone else that they were told to leave.
And at some point in time during the interaction with the defendant, after you backed away, what, if anything, did you observe?
After I backed away, just more screaming and yelling from groups of people. And then the car just proceeded to take off down the street.
And when the car took off down the street, what did you observe about how the car took off?
Driving crazy.
Prior to the car leaving the area at that time, did anybody kick or shake the car? Do you recall any
Yes,
of
there
that?
was people putting hands on the car.
Now, was that your group of friends or the people in the car?
It was my group of friends.
And when that happened, the car took off?
Yes,
And where did it go? Did it go towards farmhouse or towards Adams?
towards farmhouse.
And when it went down towards farmhouse, where were you situated in the street or in the area when you observed that?
I was at the end of the driveway.
And you looked down towards farmhouse?
Yes.
And when you looked down towards farmhouse, what did you observe?
I observed the car stop and people proceed to get out of the car.
Was that did that happen more than once? Did the car drive down and back, or did it just drive down once?
They drove down and back.
Okay, so let's start there.
Okay.
So they drove down the street. Mm-hmm. Were you outside the entire time?
Yes.
Did the car come back?
Yes.
When the car came back, what happened?
Just more driving crazy. They turned around and then drove back towards the farmhouse again.
So somebody in the chat asked about this. Did they come back? Because they could have left, but they came back. They drove back down the street that the house was on. Why? At this point, unless I hear something and I can understand further of what was going on inside the car, you have a car. Car is a weapon. There are kids there, sure, but you could leave. Unless maybe, and I haven't seen the streets in this area, was there a dead end? Did they have to circle around and go a different way and they had to come back? Sorry about this pause. That was a weird pause. But I just don't understand at this point in the game why they did not leave after being told to.
They turned around. Did they turn around somewhere in the Adams Drive area?
Yes.
And when they drove back down, did you recall people throwing things at the car at this point?
I do not recall.
When they drove back down the street, how many times would you say they drove up and down the street, if you can recall?
About 3 times.
And when they drove up and down the street 3 times, at some point in time, did they stop driving up and down the street?
Yes.
And when they stopped, where did they, if you can tell from State's Exhibit 49, where did the car stop? Did it stop where on the street?
Towards the farmhouse, there's like a light at the end of the road, kind of, and it was around that light post.
So if I point my finger around here,
Yes, that area.
the record can reflect I'm pointing to an area to the north, or the top right-hand corner where there appears to be a light pole near the corner, near the intersection of farmhouse and Adams. Excuse me.
The court will allow the record to reflect that. Thank you.
And that's where you observed the car parked?
Yes.
When the car parked down the street at that point in time, what did you do?
A group of us proceeded to walk down to the street, like to the car.
This is interesting because remember, there was a group of people who walked down the street, and we've been hearing from Tyler Rich that he walked down. Now we know that Aiden walked down. We are going to hear from another witness that's going to say they walked down to the streetlight area.
Do you know who was with you when you walked down the street?
Tyler Rich, Ricky Fiola. Other than that, I do not recall.
And when you walked down the street, how far would you say you walked down the street?
I'd say to that first light post, just about.
So somewhere,
Like the end of the tree line on the left. And yeah, that area.
I may, Your Honor, the record can reflect there's a light post, looks like on the right side of Laurel Glen, which is before a wood area just prior to 36 Laurel Glen. That's right, the right side of the tree.
Court will allow the notation on the record.
So showing you States 1 behind you.
Can you point on States 1 where you walked up to?
Yes.
Thank you for the visual. I wish we had a big screen.
Can I get up? Oh, just a point.
I'm going to have to look at Google Maps later because I do remember that Adams did have a cul-de-sac at the end of one of the street's ends. I don't know which side they were on. So technically, if they were on the side with a cul-de-sac, they would have had to make a U-turn and come back down. So they would have no other choice but to pass the house again.
Right around here.
No, but okay, yeah. So if they did, I don't know what's down Adams the other way because they said they went down Adams, and you can see if you look up Adams Drive north from the map, there is a cul-de-sac there. So they wouldn't have been able to get out that way. And if they're not familiar with the neighborhood, which we don't know if they are, and we haven't heard from any of them, then maybe they did have to go back the way that they came. Just trying to think both ways here.
It's this area.
Yes.
The record can reflect, Your Honor, on States 1. It's the area on the right side of Laurel Glen, just before 36 Laurel Glen. There's a wooded area again where the witnesses identify he walked up to.
All right, so noted.
So when you walked up to that area, did you have any weapons on you at that point?
No.
And when you walked up to that area, what if anything, did you observe at that point?
But I saw 2 people get out the car. My group of friends running up to approach them, and then just continued with more yelling back and forth. And that was it.
How long would you say you were observing what was going on from that vantage point?
3 minutes, 4 minutes.
And when you were observing what was going on down the street at that point, you indicated there's some light poles. Is there any lighting down the end of the street?
Yes.
And were you able to observe people interacting?
Yes.
When you went down the street and you observed people interacting, did you observe anybody from your group get into any physical altercation with the people from the car?
No.
Do you know whether or not Tyler Rich, Ricky Fiola, or anybody else you were with had any weapons on them?
I do not recall.
Now, after about 3 or 4 minutes, what did you do?
I proceeded to go back inside the house because Tyler was telling people to go back inside, so I listened and went back.
Tyler Rich, whose house this was, kept saying in his testimony that he was telling people to go back inside because, yes, this is getting to be a little crazy. I think that he probably didn't want his parents to find out that this was going on at his house, if this is true. So it sounds like there's another witness saying that he was telling people to go back inside, and Aiden did listen and go back inside until he heard people screaming and running. We're going to hear that in just a minute. But we already know that happened because apparently these kids didn't stay. And what I think is interesting is even if this big group of kids had a ton of weapons, let's say they all had weapons, and this car was driving by. So that's a weird pause. I didn't want him to look weird. And this car was driving by. You could leave if you knew that all of them had weapons. Let's just say, figuratively speaking, just a hypothetical, they all had weapons and they had big knives and they were like, leave. You could leave. So I know that the state and the defense are both going to keep asking, were you armed? Did you have weapons? And they're saying they did not. I understand that. But even if they did right now, the car didn't leave. People got out of the car. So I just want to point that out.
So you turned around and walked back to Tyler's house?
Yes.
Okay. And when you turned around and walked back to Tyler's house, how did you get back inside his house?
I kind of cut in front of these bushes, the red bushes, cut in front of them, and proceeded to go back the way I left, through back the cellar doors.
So in stage 49, there's 2 red bushes on the right side of the Rich property. You walk in front of these?
Yes.
And did you walk up the cobblestone driveway and back in behind the black truck?
Behind the black truck.
Okay, so the record can reflect
Last night when I was at home with my husband, I did mention something that I hadn't mentioned here, and I wanted to say it. So there is another defense you can use, and that's defense of property. That's probably not happening in this case because I believe it was Jack Snyder's car. I could be wrong. It could have been DeSilva's car, but I know Jack was driving the Honda Pilot. But let's say that damage to the car occurred from one of these people throwing something at the windshield. You can defend your property, right? But you can't use deadly force on property. So what I'm trying to say is in most states, yes, of course, if someone's trying to hurt your property, you have every right to push them away from your property and possibly even fight them with your fists and try to keep them from hurting your property. But you could also leave, call the police, tell them that your property is being destroyed, and you can't use a deadly force because your property is not worth a life. So even that, when I was talking to John, I was like, even that wouldn't make sense because, he always plays devil's advocate against me and says, well, what if my car was getting ruined or this or that? And I'm like, right, true. You could defend your property, but you could leave and get the authorities. Taking a knife and getting out of your car to say that you're defending your property or defending yourself still to me doesn't make sense. So something had to be an intervening force here in order for that to make sense to me.
path is in front of these 2 red bushes, up the side of the driver's side of the black truck, behind the black truck, towards the right side of the house.
All right, the record will reflect. Thank you.
And when you went back into Tyler's house at that point in time, what did you do when you went downstairs?
I went back inside, was talking to friends normally, and then was getting ready to leave. I was talking to my friend Jeremy. He was going to bring us all home.
Who's Jeremy?
Jeremy Oko.
Okay, and Jeremy Oko drove you to Tyler Rich's house?
No.
Okay. But he was going to give you a ride home?
Yes.
Why was he going to give you a ride home?
Because he was sober, and we wanted to leave because we weren't really having fun anymore, so it was time to go home.
Okay. And at some point in time, did you end up leaving the house?
Yes.
All right. When did you end up leaving the house?
After I came outside and saw friends on the floor screaming, and I didn't know what was happening. I came out to a fight.
All right, let's back up.
So wow, he was about to leave. He wasn't having fun anymore. And that is when he saw the aftermath.
At some point in time, you leave the house and you witness a fight?
I leave the house and I witness a group of people, a lot of screaming, and people on the floor, so yes.
Okay. When you were inside the house, were you made aware that individuals were on the front lawn?
No, I was not.
Okay, tell us about how you came to come outside of Tyler Rich's house and witness what you just indicated.
So I came out the same way I was going back and forth, and I couldn't see anything until I got to right in front of where that black truck is in the picture. And then that's when I heard all the yelling and the screaming and people running to cars. And at the time it looked like there was people fighting, but I would later find out that it was done already, like the fight was over, and there was just my friends stabbed on the ground.
So, just so we're clear, at the point where you came out of 43 Laurel Glen, you thought a fight was going on?
Yes.
But in reality, the fight had already ended?
Yes.
So when you walked out of 43 Laurel Glen, you came out towards the black truck here?
Yes.
Were you on the passenger side or the driver's side?
The driver's side.
And where in stage 49 were you standing?
That piece of like cement or whatever right there, like right in front of the truck, that's on the grass. That's where I stopped, and that's when I saw everything.
So I'm going to show you stage 4. See the cement block here?
Yes.
Okay. You were standing somewhere around here?
Yes.
Now, when you were standing there, what did you observe at that moment in time?
There's a lot of screaming, yelling, people surrounding people who were on the floor. I couldn't tell who it was at the time, but then I saw individuals run to a car, the car speed off, and then I turned back around, and that's when I realized I saw blood. I saw people crying, screaming, and saying that people had been stabbed.
All right, what did you observe about, who did you observe bleeding?
Jimmy McGrath
And
Faison Teal.
Can you tell us in this exhibit here, where you observed Jimmy at the moment?
Kind of near this bush right here, the front one, the red bush, in that
This area here?
Yes, in that area.
Okay. This is in this debris area here where there's dirt on the ground?
Yes.
Okay, so to the record reflect to the left of the red bush here, where there appear to be some items on the front.
Record can so reflect.
And what did you observe about Jimmy when you noticed him?
There was just a lot of people around him. I couldn't really see. I didn't get like up close to him, but I saw his face. I saw people around him trying to help. And then I just kept looking around and seeing more people on the floor, more people stabbed.
Who else did you see that was stabbed?
Tommy Connery and Faison Teal I saw.
What did you notice about Tommy Connery?
He was holding his leg, and then I just saw blood all over his leg.
And what about Faison Teal? What did you notice about him?
His arm was cut.
And when you noticed that your friends were stabbed at this point, what, if anything, did you do?
People were just screaming to call the police. I know multiple people were at one time, but I had someone's phone, and I called the police. Tried to explain what happened as best as I could, gave them the address of the location, and then hung up. They eventually arrived with the ambulance, and they brought people who needed care away, and the cops stayed and asked if anybody wanted to write down statements.
Wow. When I was listening to that the first time, it was very, very sad. Coming out and realizing that 4 of your friends have been stabbed. Thinking about having to be cross-examined right after you said that. And of course, the defense is going to bring up alcohol. How much were you guys drinking? How big was the party size? What was going on there? Somebody asked a question. It was a legal question. Molly said, if you claim self-defense, is that something you have to prove? Or does the state have to prove it wasn't? The state is going to prove what they think happened. And then if you are a defendant who is going to claim self-defense, you're usually going to have to take the stand. We saw that in the, Danielle Rennick? Am I saying the name right? I do a lot of cases. You're probably going to have to take the stand if you're saying you did something in self-defense, because that is a defense and you will have to prove it in some way, shape, or form, right? Because the state is going to say, this is what happened. It was premeditated. It was this, that. We can go into more of that. But in this case, we don't actually know yet. I think we're getting there, what the defense is going to try to say their theory is. But let's listen to this cross.
Leave the house and you witness a fight?
I leave the house and I witness a group of people, a lot of screaming, and people on the floor, so yes.
Okay. When you were inside the house, were you made aware that individuals
Sorry,
were
this
on
isn't
the
it. Sorry, right here.
Good afternoon, Mr. King.
Good afternoon.
We've never met before.
No.
Sometimes when you're doing live streams, mistakes happen.
If you can, just keep your voice up. It's
sorry.
to hear. We've got fans going. The acoustics are bad. I don't think we'll be long. You told us that you knew most of the people at the party that night, correct?
Yes.
And how many people would you say were there at the party?
30 to 40.
You told us that you'd had yourself 5 to 7 Bud Lights?
Yes.
And that was from the time that you arrived there around 8 o'clock until the time that you left there sometime around midnight?
Yes.
Do you think you stopped drinking earlier than when you left?
Yes.
What time do you think you stopped drinking?
Maybe 10, 30, 11.
So you think you had those 5 to 7 beers in the course of 2.5 to 3 hours?
Yes.
And he admits it straight up. And I love that. I love that about this witness. He's like, yeah, I had all those beers. Not going to deny it.
Was that pretty
But he's also not somebody that was involved in the fight. So I see why he would be more open to that.
much the way folks were drinking that night?
Not everybody, but some.
Had you brought those Bud Lights yourself?
Yes.
And was there alcohol that was being provided at the party?
No.
This was a BYOB party, so to say?
Yes.
And you yourself were 17 at the time?
Yes.
Okay. How did you come into possession of that alcohol?
I do not recall.
He's not going to get anybody in trouble. Don't ask him that.
Was there anybody that was over 21 at the party?
I do not recall.
There were some older folks that had already graduated, correct?
Yes.
Some folks that were as old as 20, perhaps?
Yes.
And did you feel, did you notice other people drinking at the same rate that you were?
Yes.
Were there any drinking games being played?
No.
No beer pong going on?
Nope.
Did you notice any adults?
No.
This was a fairly regular occasion to get together at the Rich's house and party?
Yes.
In this same fashion?
Yes.
You told us that you knew Griffin Marcinzik.
Yes.
Were you a part of the basketball group chat?
No.
He's going to talk about this group chat. We don't need to hear more details about it since we already did, but he wasn't part of the group chat. He wasn't aware that people were taunting each other, sharing Tyler's address. He didn't know about any of that, according to him. He also said that while the defendant made a verbal threat about going to throw a bottle at someone, he didn't see him holding a bottle or any weapons. He did admit, though, that people were around the vehicle. They were shaking the vehicle. And he did see the car being rocked by those Shelton kids. But he didn't see any bottles being thrown. But he did hear the car being pounded on, which I thought was interesting because, yeah, they were pounding the car, but you could have drove away.
Up the driveway with you?
Not that I remember.
The rest of the people were surrounding the car at this point?
There were still people surrounding the car, yes.
Surrounding the vehicle on all sides, correct?
Just about.
If somebody was in that vehicle and they wanted to back up or drive forward, they might have hit somebody, right?
Yes.
Did you see somebody reach through the front passenger window and punch the driver? I'm sorry, through the front driver's window and punch the driver?
I did not see anything like that.
Were people blocking your view of the front driver's side?
Yes.
And again, at this point, do you think it's still 10 to 15 people surrounding the car, or had it grown larger at that point?
I think it stayed the same, if not less.
You think less, even though you were the only one that walked back?
Well, I backed away, but I'm saying it could have been less. I don't.
When you backed away and walked up the driveway, how far up the driveway did you get?
I just stayed, I walked up back to the end of the driveway.
So you crossed the street?
Yeah, basically crossed the street, yeah.
You're standing at the end of the driveway, near the mailbox?
Yes, a little to the left of it.
Okay. Anybody else in the driveway with you at that point?
Yes.
How many people?
10 people.
Who were there?
I don't recall.
You want him to name all those people? He thinks there were about 10 people. They walked to the side of the street. He didn't see any physical altercations happen. He didn't see people from his group making any kind of threats. And he didn't witness the ultimate fight that led to 4 of his friends getting stabbed, according to him.
Be certain about this. You didn't see any of the fight that occurred in the front yard?
No, I did not see any of it.
Because you were in the basement?
I was in the basement.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Okay, so that was that part. There was a short redirect, and the prosecution is going to talk about, I think, the video.
If you're sure, if your redirect is going to be very quick, we'll do that.
With regards to the video, did you ever see that video on Snapchat, or did you see it
I just saw it sent to me.
sent to you like in a text message?
Snapchat, but not on a story.
And it wasn't was it sent to you that night or
No, at a later time.
at a later time?
Yes.
No further questions.
Lots to say about this Snapchat video. I'm very interested in it. We're going to get to more of the Snapchat video. Don't worry. But he clarifies that he did not see the fight. He didn't see the fight video on Snapchat. But I think later a lot of them had received it or saw it. Now we're going to, I think, talk about one more witness. There is 2, but I have something to say at the end. We're going to go into day 4 and talk about the last witness of the day because I feel like there was a lot to say. And if I break it up, I don't feel like it's really fair to get the flow of his entire testimony. So this next witness, we've heard about him before, Enrico Fiola. He goes by Ricky. He is 20 years old. He goes to University of Connecticut. He's studying psychology. So did I. So I was partial to that as well. He was also working 2 jobs. He was 17 and a junior at Shelton High School on May 14th of 2022. He played football, basketball, and lacrosse. He was very close friends with Jimmy McGrath, who was the victim, Tommy, Ryan, who were also stabbed, and Faison Teal, who was also stabbed. He arrived at Tyler's party around 9:15, and he says he only had 1 beer, but he did confirm that others were drinking. Ricky was informed just after he arrived something happened to Ryan Hines on Lazy Brook Road, and then an unknown car pulled up within 10 or 15 minutes of Griffin and Ryan arriving. Ricky wasn't part of that group text. He didn't know about the coordinated meeting at the house. He learned about it later. He just said that Tyler had organized a group of his friends to come over and hang out. And then when they saw this car pull up, about 10 of them gathered together to confront them. So let's listen to that part. I always bring it to this part to let you know what they said about what we already kind of know, and then what their perspective was of what we know.
So I walked kind of through that opening where the trees on the right side. Yeah, so right through that opening. And I just kind of walked down the driveway, approached the car.
Showing you states 49. Where did you, if you can recall, where did you remember seeing the car that arrived at 42 Laurel Glen that night?
Yes, so the car was parked, from what I can remember, almost kind of blocking the driveway, not all the way up to the left side of the driveway, but more so like in the middle of the road, kind of blocking it a little bit.
Be right around this area here where my finger's pointed?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the record can reflect that I'm pointing to the middle of Laurel Glen, and I'm just to the left of the driveway in the center of the road as we're facing 43 Laurel.
He actually had mentioned that the car was blocking the driveway at one point.
All right, the record will so reflect. Thank you.
So you saw the car in the middle of the road there. Do you remember what kind of car it was?
Yes, I remember it being a dark-colored
Cameraman, camera woman, camera person. Help. SOS.
Honda Pilot.
Showing you states 30. Is this the car that you recall seeing that night?
Yes, sir.
And when the car arrived at 43 Laurel Glen on May 14th of 22, was it
Sorry, the prosecutor's not at the podium. We can hardly hear him. I put the CC closed captioning up on the screen.
facing, which way was it facing? It showing 49, states 49. Which way was it facing? Was it facing Adams Road or was it facing Farmhouse?
The car was facing Farmhouse.
And
Up the road.
Did you approach the car?
Yes.
Did anybody else approach the car?
Yes.
About how many people do you think approached the car?
Give or take 10 to 12.
And when you approached the car, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you did?
So I was approaching the car to, first off, acknowledge who it was, because I was less aware of the situation at the time. I had just known that somebody was involved, so I had approached the car to kind of just confront and figure out who was in it, and also just be there for Tyler because there's a car basically blocking his driveway, and we wanted to get out of the way.
And when you approached the car, what side of the car did you approach?
I stayed on the driver's side, so closest to Tyler's house.
And when you got up to the car, did you have any conversations with the occupants of that car?
No, I never had any direct conversations. I just know there was a couple words being said between individuals around the car.
Did you notice anybody in the car that was familiar to you?
Yes.
Who did you notice?
I noticed Tyler De Silva and Raul Valle.
And Tyler De Silva, how do you know Tyler De Silva?
I know his family. Some of them are from Shelton. I grew up, played some sports with his cousin, so I knew who he was.
And you mentioned Raul Valle. How do you know him?
I had previously been at a couple different functions, I guess, parties or more just gatherings where he was there. I wasn't really
We haven't really seen the defendant a lot.
friendly or a friend of his. I just knew who he was.
And is Raul Valle present in the courtroom today?
Yes, sir.
And what is he wearing?
Blue jacket, light pink shirt, black tie.
Can you please point him out for the record? Remember, may the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant in this case?
Record will so reflect. Thank you.
Now, do you know whether or not the defendant has any nickname?
Yes,
What is his nickname?
Lido.
It always says Leo on the closed captionings, but it's Lido.
Now, when you recognized Mr. De Silva and the defendant in the car on that night, what, if anything, did you have an interaction with them?
No, not a direct interaction. I can't recall if I had said anything kind of just like, hey, get out of here. What are you guys doing here?
So another person that said that generically, not directly, but he said, get out of here. What are you doing here?
But I know we were just kind of trying to usher them out of the area, but also posing question as to why they were putting hands on our friend previously and just kind of just concerned for the occasion, I guess.
So, and that friend that you're mentioning, is that Mr. Hines?
Yes, sir.
So, at some point in time, that interaction between your group of friends in the car, did that get heated at all?
I would say voices might have been raised. I remember us kind of yelling a little bit like, you guys jumped our boy. Like, what are you doing here? Either get out or leave. But we were definitely more so telling them to leave because we could foresee possible trouble. So,
What time would you say that the Honda Pilot showed up to Tyler Rich's house? You had gotten there, you said around 9:10, 9:15. Could this have been like
probably, I want to say after 10 o'clock.
And at some point in time, was there an interaction between your group of friends and the people in the Honda Pilot prior to withdrawing? Did the Honda Pilot at some point leave the area?
Yes.
Before it left the area, was there an interaction, a physical interaction between your group of friends and the Honda Pilot as far as your group of friends maybe putting their hands or throwing things at the car? Do you recall?
I don't recall any physical altercation with the car. At least I remember the individuals in the car were kind of just looking at us. I really can't remember if anything was said. I know we were just kind of yelling, like I said, what are you guys doing here? You guys jumped our friend. But
So apparently he was aware that one of them jumped Ryan Hines.
as for any type of physicality, I just remember the car like speeding off and us kind of having to scatter out of the way.
And when the car sped off and you had to scatter out of the way, what, if anything, happened next?
So most of the individuals that were from Tyler's house had kind of made their way back towards the house. I just remember glancing towards down the road and seeing that the car didn't fully leave. I just saw the car kind of come to see the brake lights get on down the road. So me and a couple individuals stayed around just to wonder what they were doing, I guess.
He was one of the people who walked down to the end of the road. It was Ricky, Tyler Rich, I think Aiden King, and Charlie Connery, who is Tom's brother, and Tom has also been stabbed. So now you kind of know why Tyler Rich probably said, there was like 3 of us. It was like 4 of you that walked, according to them.
Prior to that happening, do you recall if the car drove up and down the road at all?
I don't recall.
And so at some point in time, you recall the car being stopped down the road?
Yes.
And did you observe what happened when you observed the car down the road stopped?
I remember some doors opening, which in a couple moments later, at some point, me and a couple individuals decided to go down in a non-aggressive way, just to kind of tell the individuals in the car, you guys should probably leave, and almost, try to confront them and wonder what was going on.
And so did you go down the street?
Yes.
Who did you go down the street with?
Charlie Connery, Ty Wood, Aiden King, Tyler Rich, Matthew Lockovich. There might have been one more person. I can't remember.
Okay, we haven't heard that name yet.
And when you went down the street, which run, did you have any weapons on you that night?
No, sir.
Do you recall seeing any of your friends, whether or not they had any weapons on them that night?
No, sir.
And when you went down the street, do you recall if anybody in your group of friends that walked down the street, did they have any weapons on them at that point in time?
No, I don't. No.
And when you went down the street, did you observe who had gotten out of the car when you got down the street?
Not fully. I wasn't necessarily looking at who was getting out of the car. I saw that doors were opening. There were more people in the car than I had thought, I guess.
So this is interesting. He went down the street and he says, they weren't doing it in, an aggressive manner. They were telling them to leave. But I think that many have made it clear that they were yelling at them, rocking the car, throwing things back at the car. But Ricky said he tried to stay calm about the entire situation and he just kept telling them to leave. He heard later that Tyler had sprayed the defendant with, it's called PB Blaster, but it's similar to WD-40. I'd never heard of PB Blaster, but Ricky said he didn't see it happen. He heard it did. But Ricky did approach the defendant, and he's the one, this witness is the one that saw something that we haven't heard about yet. So let's listen.
So I didn't interact with anyone outside of one person. When I had walked down, I was made aware that the defendant was sprayed by PB Blaster. And in that moment, I decided to approach the defendant. I didn't see him sprayed. It was just moments after I had found out he was. And I approached him with intent to almost take his side so that he would listen to me, at least. And I had said, hey, man, look, I don't think it was right that he sprayed you. But listen, there's a lot of people back at his house. I'm not trying to fight. I don't think anyone here really is trying to fight. I think you guys should just leave. There's not a lot of you guys. And, while I was saying this to him, he was holding a knife in his left hand. His girlfriend, Mackenzie Traficanti, was sitting down on the curb to his left, to my right. When I was speaking face to face with him, didn't notice it right away, but I glanced down and saw him holding a blade in his hand. So I quickly just finished up what I had to say. Didn't seem like he was too interested to begin with. And he just kind of dismissed me, and I just walked away. And that was that. I actually walked away and conversed with Charlie Connery right after and let him know that I just saw Lito with a knife.
Wow. So Ricky says that he approached the defendant who was holding a knife, and he was trying to calm the situation. He just told him, leave. What are you doing here? They're like, urging him to leave, trying to stay calm. But he sees this knife and he goes to tell Charlie about this knife. I hadn't heard that before. I don't think any of us had heard that before. Now you're going to hear him describe this knife, I believe. I hope that I'm about to play that clip for you because, live, right? but I didn't know how big the knife was, what it looked like. Let's see. I hope this is the part where he's describing it. I think it is.
When I had probably been by the back door, driver's side back door of the truck, I had heard it get a little bit louder. And then as I was squeezing through, I wasn't necessarily looking. It was also, there were some people standing around, so I wasn't looking at what was going on. But what prompted me to move faster was I heard what had sounded like a punch hit someone's face, and I know what that sounds like. So, I instantly started to speed up and try to squeeze through that as quick as possible and get closer to what was going on.
And how do you know that you heard a punch? How do you know? How do you know it was a punch?
It sounded like somebody got cracked in the face. Like it was a hard punch. I had heard like a bunch of yelling and then a loud bang, and it wasn't like a car door bang or like a rock. I knew what it sounded like. At least to my knowledge, I thought it was a punch, and then from what I had seen after, it made sense.
So when you heard this punch happen, what, if anything, did you observe next?
So I instantly saw Tyler Rich and Da Silva wrestling. I guess that they were on the ground together. It looked like Da Silva was like on his knees, a little bit over Tyler Rich with like his shirt pulled up. But I know Tyler had some type of like grip on his like around his head or something. It looked, it was just really them two at that moment. But I had gotten closer to them with a couple other individuals, kind of just seeing what was going on. We weren't ready to break it up yet, but more so just observing. Like we knew Tyler could handle something on his own, so we were just not getting involved yet.
So when this was going on, were there flashlights on? Was there light out there?
Yes. So individuals were holding their flashlights. I know that there were some videos taken. I, at the time, was attempting to take a video close up. And then right when I had finished, or I can't remember if I took the video fully or what had happened, but it was on Snapchat. And the issue with Snapchat is when you take a video, it doesn't save unless you choose to save it. So I was taking a video, and I had actually approached back to right where I had entered that grass area, so in between the truck and the Jeep. I had walked back after I took the video to show Taylor Capella and Lily Lombardi. And then within seconds of me pulling my phone out to show them, or actually I had my phone in my hand, so within seconds of me showing them, I had heard, he's got a knife, which prompted me to be like, holy crap, he does. And I put my phone in my pocket, and the video had to have deleted because when I pulled my phone out afterwards to actually look at my phone, because I was probably off it for an hour after it all happened, there was no video there. But in the moment, they had said, I had heard Charlie screaming, he's got a knife. So, I only had a second where I went to show them the video, and then I put my phone quickly in my pocket, turned back around, and kind of entered what was going on again.
So who's Lillian Lombardi?
That was a lot. I was going to wait because I wanted to tell you I need to go back for a second. That was all about this Snapchat video that he was trying to take while all this was going on, which the defense is going to bring up, so don't worry. But I wanted to go back because remember when I was like, wait, he's going to describe the knife. I didn't hear it, so I think I skipped through it. And I think that's important, so I wanted to see if he describes it.
And I just walked away, and that was that. I actually walked away and conversed with Charlie Connery right after and let him know that I just saw Lito with a knife.
And how would you describe the knife?
I didn't see any type of handle, but I guess using my hand, it was just like a 3-inch blade coming down from where his hand was closed.
What was the lighting out like that night?
It was dark outside, but I could totally see what was around me. I mean, our eyes adapt, and there was plenty of, street lights. There was, I don't think there were any flashlights on at the moment, but I was not far from the defendant whatsoever. I could see everything.
How far would you say you were from him when you had this conversation with him?
A foot and a half, maybe.
And do you recall what the defendant was wearing that night when you were speaking with him?
We know what he was wearing. I mean,
black pants and some type of light blue shirt, baby blue.
I wanted to hear about the knife because I thought that was really important. A 3-inch blade, lighting from the street lights, made it clear to him. But then here's where I got a little confused. He goes to tell Charlie about the knife. They return inside Tyler's house. They're inside for a few minutes. They go outside because supposedly what he said is the attackers had returned. And I still have no clue who came back and said, they're back. But he said that he saw the defendant standing near the red bush and he saw Tyler Da Silva. And there was only about 2 to 3 people in that moment out there. And then we just heard. He heard what he thought was a punch. He knew what it sounded like. And then he saw Tyler Rich and Tyler Da Silva wrestling. That's when he attempted to take out his phone and get a Snapchat, but it accidentally got deleted because he was frantic when he heard Charlie yell, he's got a knife. But I'm thinking, you were the one that told Charlie that he had a knife. So how did this happen? The timeline's a little bit skewed here. You're inside, you tell Charlie he has a knife, then you guys come back out, and then Charlie says he's got a knife. Was it that Charlie was letting everybody know in that moment he's got a knife? That's what I would assume. Like, he's running out saying, he's got a knife, because Ricky just told him that. So he's warning everyone that's outside. And then, of course, he saw the aftermath, that Jimmy had been stabbed. It's really sad. Seeing all this, no matter whether you knew something, didn't know something, it's really sad. I don't know how loud this is going to be. I don't know if he's going to play it or if he's going to keep pausing frame by frame. But what he's going to do is he's going to ID several people. And I found this to be informative. That's why I'm showing you.
This individual right here with the white shirt, pink shorts with the phone out. Do you know who that is?
That's me.
This individual right here, state 62. Do you know who this is?
That's the defendant.
State 63. This individual with the green sweatshirt, black shorts with the white trim. You know who that is?
Ryan Hines.
This guy right here with the white shirt and black shorts. You know who that is?
Sal Perry.
This guy right here with the shirt off with the jeans on. Do you know who that is?
Alex Bernstein.
This guy with the red hat, black shirt, and jeans on. Do you know who that is?
Mike Samperi.
And the guy right here on his knees with the shirt pulled up. Do you recall who that is?
Tyler DeSilva.
State 64. This individual to the right here that comes into frame. Do you know who that is?
Charles Connery.
Again, is that Charles Connery?
Yes, sir.
This is in state 65, excuse me. State 66. This guy right here with the white shirt and tan pants. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, it's Jake Villalobos.
And this guy with no shirt on with the camouflage shorts. Do you know who that is?
Matthew Lakovich.
This individual here with the looks to be a navy blue shirt with white shorts. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, it's Jimmy McGrath.
This is state 67. This individual looks like he's bending over, pushing some type of pushing Tyler DeSilva. Did you see that?
Yes, sir. It's Jake Villalobos.
Remember when we saw last time that Tyler DeSilva got pushed into the street, and my argument was, and I don't know everything yet, but my argument was he was pushed onto the street. No one was fighting him at that point. They told him, leave. We could hear it in the video. Leave, right? Might have been said a little bit more aggressive than that. And that's when I saw the defendant, according to the video, come back into the yard. And you can hear Charlie saying he's got a knife. It's in the video. If later you want to go back to yesterday's video and listen to where that is, you can hear it. It's eerie. So at that point, what I'm thinking from last night is he just got pushed onto the road. Why is your friend coming back with a knife? So I'm just confused because nobody's fighting your friend right now. And these are the only rivals. It's them two and the Shelton High kids. I haven't watched today's testimony. Don't go forward.
68. This individual with the jeans on near the street. You know that?
Tyler DeSilva.
And this person over here to the left of Tyler DeSilva would be who?
The defendant.
So you see how the defendant is facing towards the yard. Tyler DeSilva just got pushed onto the road. The defendant's coming back toward the fight.
And finally, state 69. Again, this person in the street. Do you know who that is?
Tyler DeSilva.
And this person right here with his back towards us with white shorts on. Do you know who that is?
James McGrath.
That's Jimmy. And the left-hand side, close to where the defendant just came back into the yard. And Jimmy was the one that was fatally stabbed. I just wanted you to get a really good representation of what was going on. We have not heard the defense's case, but now it's time for cross. I don't know why. We only have a few more clips. This cross was bothering me. I'm not sure why. I think it was just hearing about how these kids were traumatized, listening to these young kids. I was upset by that. But here it goes.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 61.
Wait, this isn't it. It's what we just saw. It's this one. Kimber, get it together.
Word started to spread that friends of yours claimed to have been jumped at 5 Lazy Brook. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
People started talking about it, right?
Not necessarily. I think that there's most of the people actually at the party didn't really know. Just a small group actually that were more so closer, maybe like football friends of Hines had found out.
And you told us you weren't part of the basketball group chat, right?
No, sir.
But you were aware that people were texting that night, correct?
No, sir.
And you think you were there for another hour or so before Ryan and Griffin arrived, right?
Yeah, just about.
And then within 5 to 10 minutes after they arrived, you're made aware that the car had shown up, right?
Correct.
You weren't surprised by that, though, given the fact that word had started to spread, correct?
No, I was very surprised because they were coming to us for safety, Ryan and Griffin, to not further get involved in anything. So a car.
That's interesting, right? In his perspective, Griffin and Ryan, who were just at that other party, Ryan got hit at that other party. They were coming there for safety in Ricky's perspective. But we know the group chat was all a bunch of taunting by Griffin himself.
Our being there was actually quite surprising.
You say they were coming to you for safety, correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
You weren't aware that Griffin Marcinzik was sending text messages with the address to 43 Laurel Glen Drive to anybody?
No, sir, I was not aware of that.
Did you stay near Griffin Marcinzik when he arrived?
I don't recall.
Did you stay near Ryan Hines after he arrived?
I think I spoke with him for a bit, but I wasn't like on his hip, so no.
So what they made you aware of was that they had been jumped, but they didn't tell you that they were live texting the address to the people they claimed to have jumped them?
No, I had no idea.
Okay. Because you weren't part of that group chat.
Correct.
And you said at some point, Tyler Rich rallied up a group of good friends, right?
Correct.
About 10 of you think?
Yeah.
And you went outside to confront the car that had shown up.
Yes, sir.
Now, you described to us that that vehicle, when it showed up, parked in the middle of the road, right?
Just about, yeah.
Right. Blocking the driveway, I think you described it as being, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't on the far side of the street across in front of the other house, right?
I mean, it could have been. I just remember it being almost parallel, like almost near the driveway, like if you just extended the driveway out. I don't remember if it was a little bit up, a little bit behind. I just know in the general area where the car was.
Blocking the driveway is your description, right?
I mean, it was in front of the driveway. It was.
If you wanted to get across the street to the house across the way, you would have to walk around this vehicle.
Correct.
If you wanted to get out of the driveway, you would have to somehow navigate your way around this vehicle.
Isn't that good for the state? I'm thinking, why is the defense talking about this blocking the driveway? But let's listen.
Correct.
And you went to confront this vehicle, right?
Yes.
And you said you knew this was the car from 5 Lazy Brook.
Well, as we were walking out, I think words were being said like, "Oh, that's them," or "These are the guys." So, but I didn't recognize the car whatsoever. I've never seen it before.
Okay. And you said you went to ask them why they were there.
Yes.
That's not all you went out to do, right?
Surely not. I mean, I went out there to kind of stick up for my buddy a little bit, but I wasn't planning on doing anything, nor did I.
Well, you said voices might have been raised, right?
Voices were raised.
Voices were raised.
Yeah.
Right. And in fact, the car was surrounded, right?
I wouldn't say surrounded. A majority of the people were on the driver's side, just kind of in a group. I wouldn't say the car was fully surrounded at all, no.
And you told them either get out of the car, correct?
Are you going to finish?
Are you going to finish? Oh, spicy.
I did. You said either get out of the car, correct?
I think so. I don't remember.
Or leave, correct?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Why didn't he just say the whole phrase? Either get out of the car or leave. Like, make your choice. He said, no, you didn't want violence. He just wanted to ask them a question, but they weren't leaving.
First thing was, though, get out of the car, right?
Yes.
Why did you want them to get out of the car?
Well, because when I'm looking at the car seemed like it was a clown car packed full of people. So it kind of matched the amount of people that were there from our end. So at that point, I was like, our friend just got his face smashed in. I mean, get out of the car. We want, hey, man, like, you just beat up our friend. Either get out of the car or be on your way. I wouldn't have cared at all if they left. I mean, I would have loved for them to leave. But, that was our idea. Yes.
Well, you're telling us you would have loved for them to leave in the aftermath of things. However, at the time, you told them to get out because what you wanted was payback, right?
I wouldn't say payback, but at least to figure out what was going on, or at least a motive. I think most of the time we were asking them why they did it. Hey, why'd you beat up our boy? Nothing was said.
That's interesting, right? He wants them to either leave or get out. I guess you could take that as wanting to start a fight. But as he put it, they just want to know why they beat up his boy. But they weren't talking.
And you said that you saw Mr. Valle holding a knife in his left hand, right?
Correct.
And you described that knife to the police as being a switchblade, right?
Of some sort. I didn't know if it was or not. That was just kind of what I had saw in the moment, or what I thought I saw at least.
And it was a stiletto style knife, right?
I didn't use that word. They might have interpreted it that way, or said, or thought that, or said, "Oh, do you think it was a stiletto?" I don't even know what that is. So
that's an interesting point, how police officers can ask you a question and kind of put words in your mouth, because he's like, I don't know what that means, but they might have said, was it a stiletto? So when you're asked on the stand, were those your words? You're like, I didn't say that. And then it makes you look bad, but you're like, no, they asked me that. And then I said, it could be, but I don't even know what that is.
But what I just remember was seeing his hand down, zero handle in his hand. I only saw a blade just coming out like this big. That was it.
What color was the blade?
I don't recall.
Serrated?
I don't know what that means.
Did it appear to have little teeth on it, like a steak knife?
I don't recall.
Do you recall anything about the shape of the blade that you saw?
Yeah, I just recall it being like a knife that comes to a point. It wasn't like a hunting knife like that. That was like a thick. I don't recall too like exactly if there were teeth, like you're saying, but I just know that it started wider and got thinner, and it was longer, like 3 inches or so.
Now, you also told officers that you saw him waving that out the window, right?
So Inova asked, why does the color matter? I think the color matters because I think they're going to argue it wasn't a knife, that possibly it was something he got from the car, like maybe something sharp, whatever I could grab. If it was me in the moment, what would I have? I might have a clip. Somebody could think it's a knife the way I'm holding it. I think that's a good argument, because up to now, I don't know if they ever found a knife. They even mentioned, could it be glass? Could it have been something else that was sharp? So I think they're asking the color because I believe they're going to try to make that argument.
I don't remember if I said that or not.
You don't recall telling officers around 2 a.m. in the morning when you were speaking with Detective Bango on the 15th that you saw Alito flashing a knife outside the window of the car?
No, I don't recall saying that.
And that the knife was a switchblade?
No, I said, I mean, it could have been. I just remember the knife. If at the time I was trying to describe it as best as I could. If that's the words I used, then that's what I said. But
again, what did he see? What did he say? Could things get exaggerated? Possibly. I've seen that happen before. Now he's getting into the video again.
And
We're also almost done. There's only 2 more.
at some point, you would agree, you pulled out your phone, you turned it on, and you started filming what was going on, right?
Yes.
You were doing that as a Snapchat or as something that was on your camera? How were you? What were you using?
So I just had Snapchat, and when you open the app, it's got like a big circle for you to video stuff or take a picture. It's like the main screen when you click on it. Like still to this day, if you click on the app, it just brings up that picture where you can take a video. So I had my phone out. You could see the flash was on, so I was trying to get what was happening on video to show the two individuals back by the Belgian blocks, like I had mentioned before.
Right, the two girls. You were going to show them this video, right?
Yeah.
In fact, you said you were going to show them the video because they had had some sort of previous interaction, and you wanted to show them and say, "Look at this video of Tyler getting what?"
Tyler just in a tussle with Tyler Rich. I didn't know if they could see it from their view because there were some people outside. So I just, again, I was 17, probably shouldn't have videoed it. Wasn't really that funny, but in the moment, I thought it was funny, or not really funny, but I just thought it was something that I could show them, so I did. But it was definitely not the smartest choice.
You were taking a video of somebody getting attacked, and you were going to show that to some girls.
See his face? He's like...
Is that true?
I wouldn't say anyone was being attacked. I think it was pretty mutual. There was a tussle going on the floor. Yeah, you see Tyler DeSilva's shirt pulled up, but Tyler Rich is also under him, and there was definitely something going on. But I wouldn't say it was doing it because I thought it was funny of somebody being attacked, like you just said. No, that wasn't the reason.
Well, you told us you thought it was funny at the time, right?
I thought it was something that would be worth showing the girls. Yes, I was also 17, so.
I think he thought it was funny in the fact that the shirt was being pulled up over his head, because they are in this moment getting revenge, even though I don't think they would see it that way, on their friend who was sucker punched. You know, Tyler and the defendant were not being so kind, allegedly, to Ryan and to Griffin. And some of those girls knew about that. So would it have been funny if your friend was getting revenge? Maybe, but he was 17 and he points that out. He's like, I was 17.
That's your testimony now that you don't recall telling Detective Bango that you heard people say that Mr. Valle was flashing a knife outside the car window.
So, question, because you said to me that I said that he was flashing it, and now you're saying to me that I said I heard people say that. So maybe if I heard people say that, that's what I said. I never said that he was flashing it outside the car window. I don't recall ever saying that. If other people said that to me, and that's what I said on the statement, maybe I said that. But I definitely don't recall seeing him flashing anything outside of the one time I saw it from our interaction.
Well, you do recall telling us that the reason that you went out there was to do the right thing, right?
Went out where?
Out into the front yard when the car came back.
Yes.
And in your mind, doing the right thing was filming this fight so that you could show it to Lily and another girl, correct?
So in the moment of being in the basement, the right thing was go outside because I'm not going to sit in the basement when a bunch of my friends are outside dealing with something, whatever that may be. I also was in a very tight friend group, Tyler Rich being one of them, so I wanted to be present. God forbid anything happened, which it did. So in my eyes, I was still doing the right thing by being out there.
You consider yourself a protector of your friends?
No, I just consider myself a friend of my friends.
So that was all I was going to show you today, because there's a lot for tomorrow. And I know a lot of you are going to be like, wait a minute, wasn't there one more witness? There is. It's Faison Teal. I don't feel personally, this is my live, and I think 2 hours is going a while, but also I want us to pay attention because that is the first victim that we're going to hear from. It's very intense. The way that he's describing it is very intense. And we're also going to see his injuries. And I would rather start tomorrow with his testimony and go straight through instead of breaking it up, because it's a lot. But that is what I had for you today. And I would love your thoughts. I know we don't know a lot of the questions that people were asking about, what did the defendant's friends think? Were they drinking? Did they know that the person had a weapon? Did he really have a weapon? We don't know yet. But that's why I love doing these lives, because we're going through it together. And someone said in the comments, there's spice on both sides right now. And there is. I mean, this is a very, very intense situation, especially for young people who probably haven't had that much life experience dealing with these kind of things. I can't say I have. I haven't watched friends of mine getting stabbed. That's very traumatic. It's a lot. But even from the spoilers, and I know what happens, I'm not mad at anyone for giving spoilers in the chat. Don't worry. I try to tell you not to, but I think our mods can remind people next time, just try to be with us here. We know it's exciting to go forward. You know things we don't yet, but try not to. And I know you can't probably know what's in what testimony at this point. But from what I saw in the chat, it's going to get kind of crazy tomorrow, right? There's going to be things brought up that maybe we didn't know, and we're going to look at things differently. So I'm always open to that. You can change my mind at any point. Thank you for gifting memberships tonight. I see that we have new law baddies. That's so nice of you. Thank you so very much. Also, I will definitely put the trigger warning pictures in Discord. There are some that I'm not going to be able to show on the screen. I'm going to try to blur things out for YouTube because I know they don't like that here. So we'll do our best. And if you are a law baddie, don't forget to learn how to connect your Discord, because we're all in there having conversations about these cases. And thank you to everyone who's here tonight with me, going over this case with me. I'm also glad a lot of you found out about this case because I did that summary. A lot of you said, oh my gosh, I'm watching this now because you brought it to my attention. So that makes me feel really good. That's why I do this. I want to bring things to the forefront. I want to talk about them. And I said that I was going to say something at the end of the video. And when I always get to the end of the video, I forget what I was going to say. And I was like, I'm saving it to the end of the video. Is there something I wanted to mention at the end of this video? I'll remember it when I'm walking out. That's what always happens. But I love our Discord. I love our community. I think I was going to tell you, Darklividity has a video going out tomorrow morning, and we would love your support. I know that Koala was in the comments saying that she wanted Jonathan to chime in tonight. He's watching Mazzy. He always does that while I'm doing these lives. So thank you for him doing that for me. I mean, you know, we switch off and we let each other do this, and we're really, really busy and have multiple channels. So whenever you can support us, that is the biggest thing you can do for us and for our channels. And we will have a video going live tomorrow. And I'll actually transport everyone there on our next live tomorrow night. I'll make sure that I redirect right to that video if anyone's interested in watching it. But thank you so very much. And if you're not subscribed here, do so. It really helps. And also on my other channels, the main channel and also Darklividity. And I appreciate all of you so much. I'm starting to get tired, so I'm like slurring my words. At the 2-hour mark, I get very, very tired. But thank you all for being here and going over everything with me. I'm excited to keep going and find out what we find out next. Thank you all so very much. See you tomorrow. Bye. Good night.